Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Thanks for tuning in to Woodzman Adventures today. Today I'm going to be doing a install of a lift kit on the Jeep Gladiator. I here have a 2020 Jeep Gladiator, and I went ahead and went with the Iron Rock Off-Road. They've been in the business for a long time. They know what they're doing. They built some real good lift kits, and now they have a 2-inch front and rear lift kit for the Jeep Gladiator. These are not the plastic spring spacers either. These are steel, so they're going to hold up over a long period of time. Good quality. Also, we have the shock extensions for front and rear. We're raising 2 inches on the suspension, so we also have to have longer shocks, or have these shock extensions on there, and these will work great for now. So the reason I went with a 2-inch lift front and rear, from the factory the Jeep Wrangler has a rake. The front end is dropped a little lower, about 1.5 inches lower in the front than it is in the rear, and I wanted to keep that. And the reason why is because if you just put a lift kit in the front, it levels your vehicle out. If you just put it in a leveling kit, well, then when you put any weight on, if you put weight in the back, or you put a trailer on to tow, well, your front end's high, and I wanted it to ride more level once I get a trailer connected or get motorcycles or something loaded in the back. So this ought to make it ride real nice. And with putting these in using our factory springs, we're still going to this factory ride. All we should have to do is install these spring spacers front and rear, and it's as simple as that. I'm going to do it right here on the shop floor with a floor jack and a couple jack stands, and go ahead and get this installed. All right, the first thing we want to do before we raise the Gladiator, the wheel off the ground, we want to loosen all the lug nuts. Then we can raise the wheel up, put the jack stand under, and we can take the wheel off. Okay, now I have the jack stand under the 2 frame rails of the truck and raised it up with the floor jack. I loosened the lug nuts before that, so now we'll just go ahead and take the wheel off. All right, next we're going to take an 18mm and take out this bolt to disconnect the lower part of the sway bar link. Okay, then we want to remove this nut that holds the brake line. That way the front end can drop down without stretching the brake line too tight. Okay, now next we're going to remove the lower shock bolt. And then next we want to loosen the bolts on the control arms, the lower control arms, front and rear, and that will help the front end drop because this actually stiffens it up. Okay, now that we're dropped down, we should be able to just easily remove the spring. Okay, now we need to remove this rubber insulator up here. And you'll notice it has 2 rubber pegs on it. You'll take your lift spacer here, and there's 2 larger holes, 2 smaller holes. So we want to put these rubber pegs into the 2 larger holes. Just kind of keeps it lined up. And then we'll slide this back up on here. Like so, and hopefully it'll stay there while we put the spring on. Now we just need to slide the spring back up on here and set it in the bottom. Okay, on the bottom here, you need to make sure that you put the spring into this spring guide where it goes. There's a stop right here for this end of the spring. So this is where you get it lined back up, and it's in that spring guide right there. Okay, now we're going to install the front shock extension, and we have the bolt for it. There's a nut on the back side. What we're going to do is put this spacer in here that comes supplied. We'll slide the bracket up over it, put the bolt through. First thing we want to do is put this bolt into the bottom side. And there's a hole in the bottom of this bracket and a hole in your factory mount that goes in, and then you'll put the nut on the top side. Just like that. Now we'll tighten this bolt up, put our nut in here. We won't tighten this up yet. We'll wait until we get the shock on, then we can tighten that nut up. Also has a supplied nylon lock nut to go on the back side. Now on the top, we're going to use the factory bolt to come with it for the shock, and then there'll be a spacer on each side of it, these thick spacers. And put our factory nut on the back side. Now we're ready to tighten all this up. Okay, we'll tighten these bolts up. Hold the top part with a wrench. Okay, now we need to install our brake line bracket back on. Now we'll put our bolt back in our sway bar link and tighten it up. One thing to remember you need to do is after you finish putting both sides on, you put the tires on, you lower this back on the ground, you want to tighten the bolts on your control arms. So don't forget to tighten them back up. Okay, now I got all my everything torqued to specs. You got to do the rear, and then I'll go around all four wheels and torque these lug nuts. And then I got to remember to tighten the lower control arm bolts back up. And then now we'll go to the rear. Okay, now on the rear, I've already got my rear wheel removed. Already got them on the jack stands on both sides. So what we're going to disconnect here is the shock bolt. Remove the bottom shock bolt. And we're going to remove the sway bar link. And then that should drop us down enough that we can get this spring out, and the spacer just goes on the bottom, so it should be a lot easier on this one. Okay, now we're going to take our bracket and put on here. Stick our bolt in, and then we'll mark on the other side here and drill our 5/16 hole. We want to hold this back like this, mark it, and drill our 5/16 hole to put our small bolt in that we have here and nut. Okay, right here we'll take a silver Sharpie, works pretty good. And we can mark where our hole goes. Now we'll take the bracket off and drill that 5/16 hole in there. Okay, now we can put our bracket on here. Put our nut on the back side. Now we can put our 5/16 bolt in with the washer on it, with the nut on the inside. And we'll tighten it. Now we can tighten our big bolt. Now I'll take and torque them all down. Okay, now before you attempt to take the springs out to put the spacer in, you want to loosen these upper and lower control arm bolts. That will help this sag down. Just remember to tighten them back when you put the wheels on, put the vehicle on the ground, then go ahead and tighten these back up after it's sitting on the full weight of the vehicle on the ground. Okay, once you got the spring out, you want to make sure you put the isolator back on, and there's a notch for it, so you'll line it up with that notch. And then this rubber nipple here, make sure that you put it back up in there where the hole is for it. Okay, I'm gonna try to put the spring on here. I got it already in the top. If I can get it up over this. Okay, once I got it pushed up on there, made sure my pins lined on top, I should be able to just put this back on there like so. Now we can button this side up after we do the other side. Okay, now we'll put our bottom shock bolt back in. And then on the back side, we'll do the same on both sides, and we'll tighten them down good enough, then you can torque them. Okay, now we'll put our upper sway bar link bolt back in. Okay, I'm gonna put this little 10mm bolt back in here. I didn't show you on the video, but I took this out just in case so I don't stretch the brake line too far. So we'll stick it back in there. And now we'll put our wheels back on and torque them. And when we get this thing let down on the ground, we'll have to tighten our bolts for our upper and lower control arms. Alright, that's got everything torqued, got all the wheels torqued, got my upper and lower control arms here on the rear torqued, all the front stuff's torqued and everything put back. So we're ready to take this thing for a test drive, see how it does. Okay guys, the Iron Rock off-road 2-inch lift kit is installed. I'm ready to take this thing up the road and see how it does. Got everything all tightened up, back together. It really looks sharp, I think, with the 2-inch lift. So we're gonna take it up on the highway and see how good she drives. Show you the lift right here. So you can tell it's definitely 2 inches higher. Looks real nice, and the good part is that I like is because it is still lower in the front. When I load the rear of it, it's not going to have the front end high. The front end's it'll be more level once I put load on there, put my trailer on it, instead of going down the road with the front end high. So that's going to be good, I think. So make a big difference. I get rid of this bumper and stuff too, and get a good bumper on there and a winch. We'll be ready to go. All right, here we go up the highway, and so far it's so good. It feels like I actually can't tell no difference between now and before I had done the lift, except for you can definitely feel the 2-inch taller. You can feel that you're taller going down the road, of course, but as far as driving, it drives straight. There's no pulling from one side. The steering wheel seems to be centered, and I don't believe I had to have a front end alignment or nothing, because it just tracks perfect down the road. So that's awesome. But as far as driving, I can let go of the wheel, tracks exactly straight down the road just like it did original. It steers the same as it did, just taller. So hey, thank you all for watching this video. I'll put a link in the description to Iron Rock Off-Road's website, and you can check them out. Check out their lifts. They'll be coming up with other lifts for this tube. Right now they have the 2-inch spacer lift, which is a good choice, especially on a budget. And it's not a leveling kit. It keeps your Jeep the same angle as you was, just 2 inches taller, and exactly what I wanted. So easy install. I mean, it took me probably 3 hours to do it by myself to get installed, so it wasn't a big deal. And if you have any questions or comments, post them below. Click the thumbs up on this video, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Right on.